All right, what's going on, everybody? We got to talk about Dandadan today. Dandadan had a great chapter. Not the best chapter, you know, nothing super crazy, but definitely a lot to talk about. Excuse me. Something that I've been wanting to see for a while now, and we finally got it, and something that I said last week was going to happen, and it's finally happening, but it didn't happen the way I thought it was going to. So I'm pleasantly surprised. So yeah, this is a good chapter. I want to talk about it. Maybe we'll talk about anime movies, because there's just a lot of anime movie news. A lot of people talking about Chainsaw Man. So we'll see. But we'll give everyone a few minutes. We got Tyler in chat. How you doing, Tyler? Miko and Muko are back. We got to celebrate. That's the weird thing, is they've been here, but like they haven't really been doing anything, or at least not like they usually do. So this week's chapter was a pleasant surprise, and it was done in a way that we've seen before, but also like it wasn't boring. Like it wasn't predictable. Miko and Muko are the best wingmen in manga. They really are. Like I genuinely can't think of better wingmen. Not in Dragon Ball. Not in Bleach. Bleach, I think the best wingman would be either Chad, Urahara, or Yoruichi, because they kind of help Ichigo and or Rahime. Definitely not Naruto. There's no good wingmen in Naruto. I don't think there's any in One Piece. Technically not any in Jujutsu Kaisen. Sort of, I guess maybe Kohaku would be considered a wing woman in Dr. Stone, right? Because she's kind of rooting for Chrome, but she also leaves him out to hang when he's being stupid. She's like, if it happens, it happens, but I'm also not going to help you. What about Rock Lee? How is Rock Lee a wingman? If anything, he's in direct rivalry with Naruto. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Hi, Shonen OG. Sorry for saying Dandadan 5 times. I got the first opening stuck in my head every time someone says Dandadan. No, by all means, you can, I mean, within good reason, but if you want to start every chat that way, I will happily welcome it. We need more Dandadan. We can't have enough Dandadan hype. Never mind, you right. That's the thing, though, is like, I'd like to think of one good example, but the relationships in Naruto are so goddamn toxic. It's like, it's kind of impossible to have wingmen in that show. We got Justin. How you doing, Justin? Justin, what did you think of football yesterday? The Pats won. Who did the Bears play? And also the Bengals game was crazy. Shout out Dolphins fans. We'll give everyone like one more minute. Excuse me. Bears lost to Ravens. I mean, yeah, it's the Ravens, even with all their injuries. Wasn't it the Dolphins that beat the Bengals? Who did the Dolphins play then? Now I'm confused. Or was it the Colts? Excuse me. Oh, it's the Falcons. That's right. They played the Falcons. That honestly, that's kind of more shocking because the Falcons have been doing really good and the Dolphins are terrible, winless. Wait, what's his name? The mentor is kind of a wingman. Are you talking about Jiraiya? I wouldn't call him a wingman. That one guy, TJ, yo, OG, long time no see. How are you? Oh, it's Grace. Hello, Grace. How you doing? Glad to have you back. We're doing good. You know, we're on our usual stuff. Reading Dandadan. Have I read today's chapter yet? Yes, I have. Only because we're in a really good spot right now. I might stop reading the chapters now that we're in a fight. I've been reading them. I usually try to like live react to chapters, but lately, just because of all the plot stuff going on, I try to read it so that I have an idea of what I'm going to talk about before I go into the stream, which I think has been working well. You guys can tell me otherwise. To be honest, I don't really notice a preference from you guys. But you know, we'll keep it fresh. OG, are you caught up on Frieren? Because I've been trying to catch up before season 2, and I'm on about episode 22, and it's really good, but I heard the manga is on hiatus. I would say the big arc that everyone talks about is really good. I don't know what like the unanimous name for it is. It's either like the Golden City arc or the El Dorado arc. But whatever arc it is, that arc is really good. The arc after that, that's kind of a flashback, I actually strongly dislike because of how much I feel like it just rehashes a bunch of stuff. It's okay, but I really just don't like it. So I definitely think it is worth the time investment if you want to read Frieren ahead of the upcoming season. Just know it's kind of a roller coaster ride, in my opinion. Oh my god, who was the Naruto character? Kakashi, excuse me, right? No. The one with white hair and eye patch? Yeah, eye patch. If you're talking about Kakashi. I also don't think Kakashi was a wingman. You're coming up with very broad definitions of a wingman. What's going on, Edens? Have I read Elmer Fudd? Have I read Witch Riv? No, but I saw that it came out. And I think I saw you tweeted about it. What is the verdict after chapter 1? Or am I confusing it with something else? I'm pretty sure it just came out. That one guy, TJ, sorry, I've been busy. I have a horrible fever. I don't know why. Been exhausted since this morning. Electrolytes. Get your electrolytes in. That could be it. Could also be a blood sugar thing. Make sure you're eating your meals throughout the day. I would like live reads. Okay, so live reactions. Noted. Thank you. Hi, I've just got on my phone. Is this chapter good moving forward? I definitely think it's a good chapter. I would say this chapter is at least a 7 out of 10. Why did she... Okay, so let's... It's official. Hold that question, because for anyone who hasn't read the chapter yet, I do want to avoid spoilers. I love tea. Okay, tea's a good way to do it. It's a great first chapter. Locked in immediately after reading it. Okay, hopefully they don't cut it in 2 months or 3 months, but you know, fingers crossed on that one. I'm gonna move my cup. Is that working? Yeah, there we go. That's going to be kind of a pain in the ass, though. Let me see. Can I move it out of shot? There we go. That works. Don't you love geometry? Sorry, my bad. No, it's all good. It's all good. We do have to pick things up, though. I just need to check 1 second. I'm waiting on somebody to get back to me. What was I gonna say? Anyway, yeah, let's get into the chapter. Also, as we talk about today's Dandadan chapter, I want to pick everyone's brain. For everyone who saw the Chainsaw Man movie this weekend, what would you rate it? If you've read the manga, how does it compare to the manga? And how does this change your, I guess, expectations for Fujimoto anime going forward? Any of that good stuff. Lemon honey tea can help with fevers. I like chamomile tea. Chamomile tea is very good. I try to avoid flavored teas. I try to avoid anything with like additives or added flavors. Chainsaw Man movie, 10 out of 10. That seems to be the vibe. I do want to talk about the Chainsaw Man movie a little bit, but I want to read the Dandadan chapter first. Have I read Tokyo Ghoul Re? I have not. I haven't even read, surprise, surprise, I have not read Tokyo Ghoul. I've read, what's the one I did a video on? Chojin X. I've not read Tokyo Ghoul or seen the anime. Chainsaw Man movie is absolute cinema. Better than the manga, and the animation was insane. So it sounds like nothing but good things. Excuse me. I doubt Witch Riv will get canned. It's a 9 on manga. Where are we? On Manga Plus. That's, you say that, but keep in mind, Kaetagami was in the top 10. In the top 10. I think week 1 it was in the top 5. But it was in the top 10 of Manga Plus for, I think, like 2 months straight before it got cut. It like fell off a little bit afterwards into like the 20s or 30s. But for its 3-month run, for the majority of those 3 months, it was in the top 10. And then they cut it. So I think it's just a matter of it came time to do new manga and they had to cut something. I just made a video where I'm going to talk about this, but yeah, it's not the best look for Jump, if I'm being honest. It was not a decision I would really support in the slightest. I thought it was pretty stupid. So yeah, let's talk about the Dandadan chapter. So last week I mentioned that the Saint Germain stuff was going to be exciting, right? I was expecting this, and surprisingly, this did not play out how I thought it was going to. I kind of expected it to play out this way in the sense that like this is a very short engagement. The way I expected this to go down was that Saint Germain was gonna like very subtly try and persuade Momo to his side and then just kind of peace out, which is sort of what he does, but not really. So he introduces himself. Also, I think it's really funny that he walks around in slippers. Like he wears a full suit, fully pressed, suit and tie and everything. But then he walks out. He's even wearing dress socks, like striped dress socks. And then he's walking around in slippers. I think that's really funny. Something interesting from Momo, though, is she says, "Who are you? Outsiders shouldn't be hanging around the school. So this whole conversation reveals that Momo doesn't recognize Saint Germain, which is something very valuable when we're talking about Saint Germain. Because every time somebody meets Saint Germain, in retrospect, when they try to remember him, they're like, I met this person, but I don't know their name or their face or what they look like. I just remember meeting them. So he has this mysterious ability to implant memories, but then retroactively, I guess, censor those memories. I don't know if this is like an automatic thing or if he does it at will. It seems more automatic. Excuse me. But what we have here is Momo's memories are reset to a very specific time. Ostensibly, right around the time before she met Okarun. As it seems, Saint Germain, if I remember correctly, Saint Germain did not come into the scene at school before the events of chapter 1. If somebody can correct me, but if I remember correctly, he came in at a very specific time and was introduced as either a new teacher or a substitute teacher. But I don't think he was actually at the school before the events of chapter 1. But when he came, like with so many other characters, he created memories in everyone at the school that he had always been a teacher there. But because Momo had her memories erased prior to chapter 1, the logic is her memories of ever meeting Saint Germain have been erased, so she's the only one who doesn't recognize him. So this is why. So this would check out, because basically the fact that she doesn't remember him means he wasn't actually here, because if he had actually been there, she would have recognized him. So she's in a very unique position where she doesn't have like these fake memories of him like everybody else does. She's probably forgotten the time he most likely implanted himself in her memory, like Tsukishima from Bleach. True. Could be automatic. So that's, I think, very valuable information going forward, because it implies that that's something he actively has to do. He has to like cast a spell, and then if somebody's memories are wiped, so to speak, he has to reapply the spell. It doesn't just like fix itself. We got Wano Godly in chat. How you doing, Wano? Fire chapter? Yeah, this chapter is really good. We're just talking about Momo and Saint Germain. So Saint Germain plays this very cool. He doesn't like overreact when Momo calls him out for being a liar. He says, even if you don't remember me, I know who you are. And she's like, okay, don't really care enough, so whatever. So what he does in this chapter is very interesting. He gives her a whistle. He says, allow me to give you this. He says, it's a crime prevention whistle. If you're ever in any kind of trouble, please blow it, though I'm not sure it will be of help to you. So what he does here is very interesting, because on the one hand, it's in character, because Saint Germain is a character that is like conspicuously inconspicuous. Like, he's so weirdly normal that everything he does kind of stands out. He's like the guy that's like too, like, suspiciously normal. You know what I mean? Like, this whole act of like giving Momo a whistle, like it should be making radars go off, but he kind of saves himself from seeming suspicious by doing this in a very nonchalant way. He like does it like he's straight to the point. He doesn't try to bullshit her. He gives it right to her. He just makes a quick comment about it, doesn't like hover over the situation so that he can give Momo time to like think like, why are you doing this, right? He just gives it to her. That's it. She doesn't have time to think about it, and he walks away. And then the other thing he does is he kind of does reverse psychology, where first he says, use it if you need it, right? It could come and help. But then he's like, well, actually, you probably don't need it. It probably won't help you. All right? Forget it. Forget you even have it. So he does this in a very he does a very suspicious thing, right? Walking up to someone that doesn't know who you are, giving them this suspicious whistle, right? But he underplays it, does it very fast so she doesn't have time to think about it. And then that's it. He just plants it. Like the memories he plants in people, he plants this in Momo's repertoire, right? Her inventory. And then he just walks off. So this is a nice moment for Saint Germain as a villain and just an intelligent character, because it shows that like he hasn't like fallen into his position by accident. He's a very calculated character. So even though he can appear to be very goofy and honestly kind of stupid sometimes, he's a very calculated character and he knows what he's doing. So I thought this was great. I think that whistle will come into play since both Momo and Okaroon are powerless at the moment. Now that you say that, I have an idea of what's going to happen. I have an idea of how this is going to play out now, but we'll have to see. I think there's one of two ways this plays out. He's assuming she can defend herself, but he wants to confirm it. That's a good idea. Would her blowing the whistle mean her admitting defeat? That's a really good question. It kind of depends on what the technical definition of submitting means. It's not so much with Saint Germain's sword power. It's not so much accepting defeat, but it's more like, do you submit, which are two different things. Accept defeat is like, I lost, right? But you can still make a strategic withdrawal, right? Even if you lose, you can be like, well, you're not going to get me. Like, I'm going to peace out of here, all right? Saying you submit is like, all right, that's it. You win. Like, you got me, right? Those are two different things. And I think with Saint Germain, it's more a matter of submitting, like voluntarily, like, all right, you got me. I'm yours. Do whatever, right? It could be what helps activate her powers unknowingly. That's a good theory, right? I think part of our clue into what it actually does is that second part, that second comment he makes, right? Because he says it's a crime prevention whistle, which is like purposely vague because he doesn't want to give away what it's supposed to be. But he says, though I'm not sure it will be of help to you. So I think that's really the thinker, right? Because it's like, well, what does that mean? Why wouldn't it help her? I feel like he might implant false memories. It could be. I don't know. As a girl, the radars are off the second he mentioned the whistle being ineffective. Like, it's clear he doesn't care fully about her safety, about their safety. That's the thing though, right? Is there should be radars going off, but then he kind of like underplays the whistle. Like, basically it's nothing. Like, I just gave you nothing. So it's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's a stupid little thing, whatever, right? So to Momo, it's harmless. So she's just gonna like pocket it and forget about it, which is exactly what he wants, right? He wants her to pocket it and like not really think about it. This is what he does. He just kind of like is present, and he specifically makes himself like hidden in plain sight. And that's what he's doing with the whistle. He's hiding it in plain sight, giving it to her with the clear intent of her just like pocketing it and forgetting about it, all with the Hail Mary hope that on a whim she's just like, oh yeah, I have this stupid little whistle, let's see if it, you know, does anything, right? This could lead to either Turbo Granny coming back or Reiko Kashima, maybe? I don't know. She could be in a bad spot and activating her powers like the first time she got them, but with the whistle's help this time. Yeah, it could be, right? I think that's a good idea, right? Because if he says it probably won't help you, that would be consistent with him thinking like, well, it's supposed to boost your powers, but if you don't have your powers, then it probably isn't going to help you, right? I think that is something that could work. So anyway, then Momo goes to hang out with Miko and Muko. They talk about Okarun. They're like, he's your boo. He's your bae. He's your boo-boo. All right. But if you've ever seen oh my god, what is his name? I don't know. Forget it. I was trying to think of a celebrity, but I can't remember their name. He's her boo-boo, right? Almost like, I don't know who this guy is. We may have been good friends, but I can't really sense that. So the girls are like, look, there's only one solution to this. Go on a date with Okarun. So they do for Momo what they did for Okarun before, where they kind of force Momo to go on a date. And it's like kind of the perfect date for these two. Like, if Momo had her memories, this would be like the perfect first date. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And this is also a nice reminder that Miko and Muko are fully supportive of Okarun's interests, right? Because they're always bringing up occult stuff around Momo and Okarun because they know Okarun likes it so much. They could have done anything, right? Like, they could have gone to the tea house, they could go to the mall, they could go to the aquarium, but they specifically make this an Okarun focused date, and I think that does two things. One, it shows that they actually care about what Okarun's into, but also they're like, okay, well, Momo's an idiot and she doesn't remember Okarun, so if we put her in a situation where Okarun is going to go full geek mode, then that will set up Momo to fall in love with Okarun, like the way she fell in love with him before. So Momo's friends are very smart, or at least they're very emotionally intelligent, which I think is awesome. And it's another reminder that they're the hardest working side characters in all of anime and manga. I think so. We need Turbo Granny. Maybe she could help get Momo's. I think Turbo Granny being the one to restore Momo's memories would be really nice, because Momo was always sort of, in a way, looking out for Turbo Granny. So it'd be a nice way for her to pay back the favor. But I don't know how likely that is, because I don't know when Turbo Granny is going to re-enter the story officially. So anyway, they go back to, or they go to the museum, and there's a few things that happen here. The girls are just kind of hanging out, right? Like, they're taking part, but they're not really like taking an active interest. So like they care, but like they don't really care. Obviously this is because, and I actually missed this. Now that I'm reading the chapter again, I notice it. Like, as soon as I actively look for them, I notice it. But I was like, Okarun and Momo. I was like, wait a minute, they left? So what they do is they go there. They're like, oh, hey, cool, mummies, whatever, right? And then as soon as Okarun starts to talk and Momo starts to get into Okarun being classic Okarun, they like Scooby-Doo tiptoe out of there, right? You can almost hear Scooby-Doo doing like the, right? Like the SpongeBob, like tiptoe. You can see them like just slide out of there with nobody really noticing. So, definition of perfect wingmen. Of course we get all this mummy stuff. They make an interesting connection to aliens, which I don't think is immediately connected to what happens at the end of the chapter, but at the very least it does kind of set you up to expect that there's going to be a mummy. There's a pretty consistent trend. Excuse me. There's a pretty consistent trend where whenever there's going to be like a one-off monster, like a monster of the week, I guess, what they'll do, or not so much a monster of the week, but like a new monster, they usually, when the opportunity is there, Tatsu will like prime you, right? So like in this case, they talk about the mummy and they discuss the theories. So it's like, okay, we can probably expect there to be a mummy, right? They did it with the, what's it called? The Tsuchinoko, right? The serpent, and the Mongolian deathworm. And then of course we got a Mongolian deathworm. They did it with Mr. Shrimp, right? Because they talked about the mantis shrimp and was in what was seemingly a random scene. I'm trying to think of more examples. I think that's it, but I also think that's really the only opportunities there's been to like introduce a creature before that creature enters the plot. Usually like you just don't have time to like introduce every single creature, or it's just like not really the smartest thing to do because you want that shock value. Yeah, so Okarun is in full nerd mode. We see Momo not so much fall in love with him, but like really fall in love with Okarun being pure nerdy Okarun. And she says, look, I don't really get all the alien stuff, but you do tell a good story, which is another way of saying like, look, I don't really give a shit about what you're talking about, but it's cool that like you get into it, right? I think they did that with Nessie as well. Did they? I don't think they did. Did Okarun mention Nessie before Nessie showed up? I think in that arc, the only one who got set up was Mr. Shrimp. I think so. We got Oscar in chat. How you doing, Oscar? I don't know what I didn't expect more. That Okaroon would tell Momo he loved her, or that it wouldn't do much. Yeah, I have thoughts about that, but I don't really care. We'll get into it in a second. Actually, I think this is immediately. Yeah, no, that's actually a great transition into what happens next. Anyway, so Okaroon is classic Okaroon. They leave the museum. He offers to walk her home. He's like, no, 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 I just want to do the right thing. So she says, Okaroon, do you love me? And he says, I totally love you, right? He doesn't look at her. He even closes his eyes, but he answers honestly. And Momo freaks the F out. She's like, oh my God, why would you say that? And he's like, what are you talking about? You asked me and I said yes. And she's like, yeah, but I didn't expect you to say it. What kind of freak just says I love you? It's weird, you weirdo. And he's like, well, don't ask if you don't want to hear it. And she also like rips him apart, right? She says, why would I like you of all people? And he's like, okay, I get it. Shit, all right, Jesus, I get it. You don't have to keep saying it. So anyway, they keep fighting. They allude to the Ken Takakura thing, which everyone is expecting, but they avoid it, right? So I'm pretty sure at this point, Tatsu has said it without saying it, that there's going to be a, you know, like a big Ken Takakura moment. But yeah, we've dodged it yet again. But something that Oscar pointed out is like, this is technically like the confession, I guess, or it's a confession, because it's not like conventionally what you think of as like a confession. A confession is like, you go out on a date, you leave the date, you walk home, you're like, hey, listen, I had fun, this was great, we should do this again, and hey babe, I love you, right? You know what I mean? Classic romance stuff. Here it's just like, hey, are you in love with me? And he's like, yeah, actually I'm in love with you. Not really the first thing people think of when they think of a confession. If anything, the first one we got in the Donmara arc would be the closest thing to like the official confession. But in canon, the characters are like, okay, well, we have to do it over because, you know, it didn't count. I don't know why, but it didn't count, right? Yeah. And then, of course, unsurprisingly, we meet what is almost definitely a mummy. We don't really get a full picture of what they look like. They look like they're on a bicycle. But it's some kind of mummy on a bicycle with a katana, which is incredibly random. And what's even more random is there's an army of Serpoians, right? Is that how you say their name? And this does not look good because these Serpoians almost definitely want to capture Momo, which is never good. So good cliffhanger, good chapter. I'd say it's a 7 out of 10, possibly an 8, more like a 7. And yeah, we finally have an interesting fight to look forward to with a new creature, which I think a lot of people were probably looking forward to. I know some people have been talking about like, when are we going to get a vampire? I don't know how likely that is, but we got another classic Halloween creature. So yeah, great chapter all around. They mentioned the gnomes because Momo shrank. Yeah, I get what you're saying, but those are all like retrospective. Like, we meet the creature and then they explain the creature we met. I'm talking about instances where, like, they bring up a creature and then that creature shows up. So, like, they brought up the Tsuchinoko and the Mongolian deathworm, and then we met a Mongolian deathworm. They mentioned the mantis shrimp, and then we met Mr. Shrimp, right? So instead of, like, just explaining it, it's more the idea of, like, we're primed to think about that creature entering the story, and then it happens, as opposed to, like, the creature pops up and then it's like, oh, here's this thing that we just met. J-Man animates, I just caught up today. Amazing stuff. That's awesome. So I know you just caught up, but how would you rate the manga as of chapter 215? And where would you rank it among your favorite ongoing manga? Loving the dynamic between them. It's so dorky. Yeah, Okarun and Momo do have that, like, dorky love, right? That high school love. Excuse me. The creature feature, I like that. That's a good way to call it. The Reiko setup was beforehand. Who was Reiko? Reiko Kashima. Kind of. I guess that kind of counts. That was more an instance of, like, oh, hey, don't go down that alley. I guess that would fall in order. I thought it was more like, I was thinking more like they kind of just, like, innocuously mention a myth or a creature, and then the creature shows up. Reiko is more a case of, like, they specifically name the creature, right? Like, okay, we have to avoid this creature, and then the creature shows up. But I guess that would technically count. It falls in that, under that umbrella of, like, foreshadow. I think Momo asked because her friends said they loved each other, so she wanted to check something. But it's funny if the reason she didn't believe him is because Kenta did it before. I mean, I guess so, but I don't really think she bought that either. It's funny when you think about it. The first time he confessed his feelings, it didn't work out because Momo was little and they postponed it. The second time, it didn't work out because she has amnesia. Third time's the charm, as they say. Yeah. Although it didn't really work here either, because, like, she acknowledged it, but she was also just like, dude, who the hell says that, right? Like, not so much. I think we're gonna get, like, the official canon confession that is more conventional to, like, a romance manga, where it's, like, big and dramatic, and it's like, I love you, baby. I'm still rooting for the Okarun pulls out the guitar and is like, I love you, bitch. I ain't never gonna stop loving you, bitch. Right? Although I don't think that's gonna happen. Momo just in the corner like, oh my god. Out of ongoing manga, One Piece is my favorite. Besides that, this is my favorite ongoing series. I have a similar answer, but it's a little confusing. I would say Dandadan. Technically, my favorite ongoing series is One Piece because One Piece is my favorite manga and it's still ongoing. But my favorite weekly manga, like my favorite manga to read new chapters of on a weekly basis, is Dandadan. I wouldn't say that about One Piece. As much as I love One Piece is not nearly as consistent on a week-to-week basis throughout the course of a year. Because sometimes you'll have, like, great points in One Piece, and then other times it's like for 2 months straight, you're like, yeah, it's an in-between chapter. Oh yeah, next chapter. So what do we think Momo's thought process is on Okarun currently? I don't think she really knows what's going on. I think she wants to reciprocate what Okarun is saying, but like emotionally she's not there. Like she's really trying to figure out, right? Because she says to her friends, she's like, I kind of get the feeling that something's there, but like I just not really feeling it, right? So she's trying to put herself in that spot. She just can't emotionally get there. Yeah, so unless anybody has something else they want to bring up about today's chapter, that's really all I have to say about Dandadan. I do want to talk about the Chainsaw Man movie a bit, and also kind of prime ourselves, although we have plenty of time, but I do want to kind of just drop the fact that we're getting the Fujimoto one-shots 17 through 23, I think. We're getting those, I think, technically soon, or already in Japan, but we don't really get them until the end of November. Okarun should just bust out a guitar. Yeah, honestly, that's not a bad idea. That's what I'm saying, right? A serenade by Okarun would be so cute. I don't really see him do it because I don't really see him as the type of character to sing, but you know, obviously I'm rooting for it. It's November 8th on Prime Video. It's November 8th? Am I crazy? I thought it was later in the month. That kind of changes my story there. Let's see. Oh, you're right. Still a couple of weeks before the 8 shorts are released. Oh, yeah. Of course, on the Japanese poster, they don't just list it. November 7th and November 8th in Japan. Okay. See, that kind of changes things. I'm glad somebody said that because I thought it was the end of the month, so that was going to mess me up. I'm seeing the Chainsaw Man movie again later this week. I haven't seen the movie yet. It'll be in Poland only from October 31st. Yeah, as much as I hate the whole like behind Japan thing, America does have it pretty nice when it comes to dubs because we are kind of privileged in that sense. Unfortunately, a lot of Europe and a lot of the rest of the world are kind of just out of luck when it comes to anime translations. So in terms of Okarun and Momo, he wants to do it, but he sees how it annoys the readers. Okay, so Tatsu, excuse me, keeps giving us substitutes for a confession only to end with nothing. He's laughing at us. Fujimoto would be proud. Yeah, Fujimoto is another character that is like, man, screw your predictions. I think the writer is taking his time. Not so much rage baiting. Yeah, I think so. I think it's accidental rage bait. Inadvertent rage bait. But it's definitely baiting for sure. Look on Mal, Chainsaw Man movie is currently second. Yeah, I saw that. I saw that it's like already in the top 10, which is so, that's kind of what I kind of why I want to talk about the movie, because it's so night and day compared to Chainsaw Man season 1. It's crazy. And it kind of, it's really like a pin on the new Fujimoto era. Which honestly, I almost want to make a video about the turnaround Fujimoto has had going back to the first season, because during its run, Chainsaw Man was pretty popular. It was just elitists being elitists complaining about it. But by the end of season 1, Chainsaw Man was in a very weird spot where like people really didn't like part 2 at the time. Part 2 was in a really weird spot. I think that was around the time we met the Fall Devil, or right after it. So it was like a very weird point in the story. People were attacking the anime. They were trying to find like every way to say it was a failure. People saying like it was a failure because it didn't sell Blu-rays. It was a failure because artistically it looks very weird, right? It's a failure because Mappa didn't really make as much money as they were expecting, right? It's a failure, blah, 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 blah. So basically everyone was shitting on Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man stocks, I don't know if I'd say were plummeting, but they were definitely down the toilet. And they like kind of made a comeback as the manga made a comeback, right? Oh, and the other thing at that time too was this was the peak of like Chainsaw Man Part 2's current art style, which is a clear I don't know the word for opposite of improvement, but it was a clear decline from the artistic quality of Part 1. So that was the other reason people were like, man, Chainsaw Man sucks, right? Then it came back little by little, and then they dropped Look Back, and that like brought Fujimoto stocks right back. Everyone was basically treating the Look Back special or the Look Back movie like it was a Studio Ghibli movie. Like everyone was like, peak fiction, Fujimoto, you're a god, you're the artist among artists, right? Downgrade, yes, thank you, that is the word. Downgrade, that is the word we'll use. Thank you, Edens. But yeah, Look Back did wonders for Fujimoto's. Really ever since then, Fujimoto stocks have been like through the roof. I think really like Fujimoto, like diehard Chainsaw Man fans never really lost faith. I think they just had certain levels of PR throughout the history of Part 2. And as soon as Look Back came around, they had more ground to stand on. And I think that's when like the diehard Chainsaw Man fans really got a little more bold, because they were already bold. But after Look Back, they're like, yo, Chainsaw Man Part 2 was never bad. Everyone's just gaslighting, right? Which is kind of true, but also not true. Then Chainsaw Man manga gets even better with the more recent chapters. Fujimoto stocks get better again. And I think once we get the well, again, now that we have the Reze movie, like even higher, right? So I think that's why you see people rushing to give the Reze movie like a 10 out of 10 rating, because Fujimoto stocks have like almost quietly, like in our faces, but like also kind of in the background, been shooting up. And so this is like the icing on the cake. This is like the momentum was there, and now that the Reze movie, I keep wanting to say Look Back, now that the Reze movie is there for people are just eating that up and whoosh, right? And that's why Chainsaw Man is probably hitting a new peak of popularity. I suspect when they drop season 2, if they don't just do another movie, I suspect it'll reach an even higher level. But right now, I think it is the most popular it has ever been. I think Chainsaw Man is probably more popular now than it was during the season 1 run of the anime. Season 1 looked beautiful. It had different endings for every episode. Again, I don't really know what people were talking about or what they were smoking. I thought it looked really good. I still don't get why people said the anime looked bad. It's something about the composition or the colors. People didn't like the colors. I don't know. I would have to look at it. Do we know when the Chainsaw Man movie comes out on streaming? I don't even think they have plans to put it on streaming. I'm sure eventually it'll be on Amazon, but that is an excellent question that I don't have the answer to. The Japanese audience didn't like it, so people over here decided they needed to agree. Is that true though? Like, I feel like that's the thing that people just said. I don't know how true that is. People in Poland who didn't get Look Back, one-shots won't get Polish subtitles, and the movie hasn't been released yet. What era? You know, that's very fair. And to be fair, like I said, unless you're the US or certain parts of Europe, you're out of luck, and I feel for you. That being said, in the mainstream, we definitely seem to be in a Fujimoto era. I'm not saying globally, but I am saying in the mainstream. But yeah, that sucks. I think the movie is a 10 out of 10 regardless of Fujimoto's image in the community. I think it's a 10 out of 10 because of his image. Again, I think the momentum that was there from Look Back, and the newer chapters of part 2 are kind of what boosted people to like hype up the movie before the movie even came out. I think if the movie had come out at a different time before Look Back, and before the recent chapters, I think it would have been less highly rated because people would be more reluctant, excuse me, to hype it up. Yeah. So Oscar points out something that I was thinking as well. Notice something interesting. Chainsaw Man anime was a mainstream battle shonen. Look Back is an art movie for a minority audience that has nothing to do with fighting. Interesting trend. I think Look Back is like the kind of thing that in traditional media people might accuse of being like Oscar bait, where like it's very artistic, it's very dramatic, it's very like abstract, right? But I really think the reason Look Back was received so well was it wasn't MAPPA, so like it wasn't like just another MAPPA anime. And the other thing too is like all around, even more than the source material, it is truly a love letter to animation. Or I guess a love letter to art. The anime is a love letter to animation, but the story is like a love letter to artists, which has been done in anime, but is something that is still unique, so people ate it up. And then the other thing is they really treated this special like a movie. Like the animation and the composition is gorgeous. It's clearly different from the style of Chainsaw Man, and I think that's why it was able to stand on its own two legs. And I think MAPPA took direction from that just from the trailers. I haven't seen the movie, but from the trailers, the Chainsaw Man movie, the Reze movie, looks more like Look Back than it does season 1 of the anime. If someone's seen the movie, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think Mappa took a cue from Look Back and was like, we need to focus on like the visuals, not so much like the crazy stuff, but like the visuals. Let's make this movie look like a movie. I know, OG, I'm just kidding about Poland. No, I know. It is worth noting, though. I think people, especially English speakers, it's easy for us to forget that, like, in a lot of countries, people just don't have access to this stuff. So when there's conversations about, like, pirating, in a lot of ways, legally buying manga is, like, kind of a privilege, because in some countries or in some places of the world, these companies just don't service you. They don't make it available. And if they do, it's not in your language. So it's like, tough luck. The Japanese fans were looking for season 1 to look more like the movie. They wanted it to look more stylized and less realistic. I mean, I guess. I think that's a weird complaint to have, but I get it. I'm new to manga reading. Is there any cases of large mangas having crossovers like comics do? Not so much in canon. It's more of an anime thing because manga tend to be separate. There'll be like references, but not like crossovers. There are certain anime though where they have crossovers if you look that up. The one example I can think of is Hiro Mashima. If you like Fairy Tail, he did a crossover manga called Heroes, but that was specifically a Hiro Mashima thing. That wasn't a Kodansha thing or a weekly Shonen magazine thing. Shout out to fan translations continuing to grow. Yes and no. We need fan translations for the reasons I brought up, but translators can be very egotistical in certain situations and for very weird reasons. Certain fan translators are like the people in YouTube shorts where like you're watching a clip of an episode and they just like add swear words when there aren't even swear words, and they just add them so that it looks edgier. That is basically scanlators or fan translators in a nutshell. A lot of them. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Gintama and Sket Dance, true. That's a good example. There's also, I think it was Sket Dance and Witch Watch. That's another example. The fact that Look Back is a beautiful artistic movie is one thing. Personally, I have the impression that there's a trend where if something is a popular mainstream battle shonen, people will hate it because they want to stand out. Look Back doesn't fit this trend, whereas Chainsaw Man does. I think as a general principle, what you're saying is true. I just think with Chainsaw Man, it was just this very specific group of people who were like weirdly nitpicky about it. I really didn't see people complaining about the fights. At least I don't remember. But I definitely agree with what you're saying generally. I just don't know that that was... I think that's why Look Back did well, but I don't know if that's why Chainsaw Man didn't. I don't know. I would have to have the facts. And unfortunately, the facts aren't always like black and white. You'd be surprised, but in Ukraine, publishers are fighting for more manga. And for the last few years, situation has become better, which is kind of surprising because of the war, but that's good news and I'll take it. I think that's awesome. Anyway, that's all I have to say for today's stream. I just wanted to talk about Chainsaw Man since the movie came out. Check out my Reze video if you haven't seen it already. There's a strong chance I might not be here for Dandadan next week, but I will confirm that this weekend if that is the case. Look out for video tomorrow. Video this weekend as well. Stream Thursday. And yeah, after that, we'll enter the next month of content, which I'm equally as excited for. Honestly, not to get ahead of myself, but if you look at the last month of videos, we had not really any strong peaks, but we had probably the most consistent month of views I've had in at least a year, probably more so. So I want to thank you guys. I want to thank you guys because we had a great month, and I'm going to do everything I can to continue that trend. So shout out to you guys. You're the best, and I'll see you Thursday.